Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. This article is the work of Professor Dr. Waston and I. But for this season, I was given to the task to presenting this to all of you. Well, started. Maybe we think that we are walking backwards because the pandemic has hampered many of our activities. But actually, we are being forced to move forward. Every one of us, primary education students, university professor, and professional, are forced to connect ourselves with digital culture. One thing that becomes the question is, has this pandemic changed the humanity and religiosity? We carry out a philosophical analysis of the dynamic of humanity in general and also of religious dynamic during the pandemic. In the religious dimension, we found three theological tendencies in responding to the pandemic. First is fatalism. There are some people who ignore for protocol, for example, just because they believe that God is the one who determines whether someone is exposed to the COVID-19 or not. But this fatalism does not stand alone. It is also caused by the lack of literacy about COVID-19. This generally occurs in rural areas where social activities that prioritize intimacy are still common. And the second is rational pragmatism, which places COVID-19 as a purely scientific issue. Whether we are infected or not depends on our own effort. Pragmatists usually think that God's intervention is not necessary to be discussed. This group, according to our observation, does not mean that they are not religious at all. They are just trying to be rational. Generally, they also not happy with religious narrative that consider COVID as punishment from God or as the shoulder of God and so on. And the third is the combination of the previous two. They believe that the spread of COVID-19 follows scientific mechanism and natural laws. But at the same time, they also believe that prayer and worship are equally important in the force because God also has the power to perform miracles for those He wants. On the humanitarian aspect, we highlight at least three attitudes toward the pandemic. First is utilitarianism, a philosophical understanding invented by Jeremy Bentham in 17th century. This understanding has a principle of producing the most good in decision making. In the context of pandemic, we must say that it to save more lives, even though there is a risk that fewer will not survive. It is better to establish, for example, herd immunity when there are many who are immune to the virus, even though some people, particularly the elders and those who have comorbidities, may not survive. And the second standpoint is Kantianism. It is started by Immanuel Kant, then continued by John Rawls and Chicken Habermas. This understanding is based on the principle that all people, including the weak and the diseases, have the same right to be preserved their life. In order to protect life, this understanding requires a strict lockdown, even though it burdens the state budget, the state financial. And the third is libertarianism. This principle gives the individual freedom to choose to be safe or not. And the state should not be held responsible for it. For the government, it is anti-lockdown policy, for example. And social activities are still free. And I think this happened in many countries, especially at the beginning of the outbreak. Well, next. Okay. When we are busy with the religious attitudes and humanitarian attitudes toward the pandemic, quietly but surely, there is a big change actually. There is big change that's really running fast, such as online stores that beat supermarkets, and then financial technologies like digital wallet and online loans that really increasing, and then online classes that beat campus life and so on. And instead, digital culture is really fast running. I mean, this is the victory of digital culture. And then who is the real winner? I think those who have the greater data, occupy the big data, they will be the winner. Okay, to close this short presentation, I just want to say that one of our most important homework for today is actually not preparing for what will happen after the pandemic, but rather what will happen after everyone is bound into digital culture. I think that's more important. I think it's enough. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.